Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Podcast with your hosts, Franklin Grimberg and Edward Walton, where we discuss Microsoft 365 security and Azure security news and products. Recorded August 24, 2022. Good evening, Brody. Good evening, Rod. Good evening, Frank. How are you guys doing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Doing all right.
Anybody kick ass and chew bubble gum, except I'm all out of gum.
A lot of gum. These alien bastards are going to pay for shooting up my ride. You got to be old enough to remember Duke Nukem back in the day. I played enough. Oh, man. Interesting week for me. I essentially got a PhD in our syslog and syslog.
Congratulations.
I've not spent this much time. This month, I spent more time in a Linux environment than I have in a Windows environment. But I had some issues. You'll see my tagline here. It's syslog plus self divided by AMA times OMS equal bad day. So I got to write something up to tell people, yeah, you can cohabitate all of the log gathering technologies. But, I'm going to go back to old school. I've been doing this a long time. Separation of duties or separation of technologies across workloads still will save your butt. So about 3 days worth of troubleshooting, helping the customer out. And what it ultimately being was the OMS agent or the log analytics agent or the self collector, whatever it may be on the machine. It can be corrupted. And it won't manifest itself that it's not listening on the ports correctly. And the only tip-off is that when you're using the agent, and if it's bound, when you do I spend so much time in TCP dump and netstat, I'm dreaming about it. But when you, so when you do it, and big shout out to Gene. He gave me an hour rundown on the ins and out of syslog, which helped me with my thesis to graduate. He is brilliant. He's like, oh, it's here. And he couldn't fix it. He said, I don't know what's going on. So I did a little something, come to find out. The agent will report as healthy. It will continue to bring the logs into the log collector for Sentinel, but it won't send it to port 25226 so they can go to the Sentinel workspace. And the only way you will tip off is that it should be bound to the loopback. So it was, didn't catch it at first. It was bound to 0.0.0.0, which is normal for some of the others. But particularly on that, it has to be bound to the loopback. And the troubleshooting, self troubleshooting or whatever else, they won't catch that. Now, I made it. I actually got into the Git and went down the actual self troubleshooting Python script and just went line by line. It's a good read. Go take a look at what it's doing actually, and go look at what the deployment stuff is doing. So I spent more time in Git this month than I ever have. And so it goes back to what I was griping about, but I don't have a leg to stand on. This stuff is being contributed by those who are taking time out their stuff. But if you're going to do it, keep it updated. And if you are using it, Ed, help out the situation by putting in, an issue. Hey, this is broken. You got to do this really quick, right? This script doesn't run because it doesn't know how to check the Python version variable. It's coming back as failed. You have to put this in there, right? So I learned a lot about it. Customer came back up, and after being down for 3 days, maybe 4, when we finally got it stood back up on the same log collector, we had to purge all of the configs, reinstall the agent, but they couldn't get the agent reinstalled because the firewall rules wouldn't allow them to get the Git. So they had to go get that taken care of. But once it did, I thought the amount of volume coming in was going to choke that little poor log collector. I mean, Checkpoint is just screaming at it, man. Everything just screaming at this thing. And so I did a tops. Once the logs started coming in Linux, you do a tops to see, oh man, you just see the percentage going up. But cool. The server doesn't choke out. The agent can handle, and the rsyslog daemon can handle as much as you can throw at it, right? You'll run up a mom error, which is memory overuse something or another, forget what it was. but also just about the third-party log collector for Sentinel. Make sure you put in the variable for log rotate so that your server doesn't fill up the disk space. And the other thing is, I can think of the other thing. There's one more thing that Gene told me to do. So didn't resolve the issue, but I learned a lot. So that was my thing.
Cool,
good,
man.
good learning week for me so far.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. By the way, make sure the logs recycle reminds me of back in my Exchange days when Exchange logs would fill up on that random disk partition, and suddenly everything would just hammer down. You're like, why can't I email anymore? So that reminds me of that. Hey, is your log collector, is that just so is it a VM or is it a Docker instance, or what's the log collector receiving all that data from?
Both. So
Both. Okay, sweet.
I have three. I'm running the collector in Docker, a straight VM in Azure, and I have one on premise to test in my lab.
Cool,
To be able to do
okay.
something. They do the same thing, but they act different.
Oh,
right?
Interesting. Okay.
If
Yeah.
the customer has me, where should I put it? Put it in Azure. Don't put it on premise. Yeah, put it in Azure.
Well, if you don't mind, that reminds me of exactly what I've been working on over the last week, which is getting a log collector set up. Great banner, Ed is a log collector. We were getting a Red Hat Linux 8 Azure virtual machine set up with Docker to perform log collection for a Palo Alto for customers on-prem network, and we're going to shuttle all those logs to Defender for Cloud Apps / Cloud App Security, if you remember Edward's favorite utility out there. And they originally kind of got this set up about like in the spring, but it never got going. And so the task was given to me to like get it over the finish line. So I was told to start at like step 3 or 4. Sure enough, we had to go back to step 2 and back to step 1 and actually go through the whole thing again. So lesson learned: don't assume all the work that was done prior to you getting there was done correctly or at all. Might as well just start the dang thing over. We're a family-friendly show here, and go through the whole process. And yeah, that was good, right? The hardest part was actually coordinating with the customer's management team in terms of who managed their environment. I can't say who it was, but and made sure that obviously like firewall ports were open and all that jazz, and the right variable of the logs being transmitted. The Palo Alto had a number of different options for transmission of logs, and so we're still trying to validate to make sure we're actually getting traffic logs and not just random diagnostic logs. So that's the next step.
You asked me about that. Did I give you the right answer?
Yeah, you did actually. You did. Yeah, because it was not clear. It was not clear immediately. I put in a recommendation for the MS Docs team to change that up. Yeah.
And not like I'm some Microsoft Cloud app service or Microsoft Defender for Cloud expert. I ran into that.
Okay.
Matt Egan sent me a Palo Alto box a while back, and I couldn't figure out the login format. And the documentation doesn't say. So when you asked me that question, I'm like, oh, I know what that is. Yeah,
Sweet.
I burned a day trying to figure this out.
It's not what you know, it's who you know, right, Edward?
It's who you know. That's the reason, man. I like to know people like Frank. You'll never go to dinner with him or lunch. He'll ghost you, but you'll be there. Ryan, what did you break this week? Because I bothered you this week on a few things.
Oh, what am I working on? Oh, a couple things I can't talk about, but I'm really just working. I've got a vacation coming up, an actual serious vacation, taking the entire family to the beach, even the grandbaby. So I'm in that mode, right? I'm trying to
the complete checked out mode. Yeah,
get my inbox down to which was actually pretty cool because, as most people know, I deliver 2 newsletters every week, one for Sentinel, one for Defender. Sometimes I get a little too personal. People think, there's something wrong with me. A couple weeks ago, I had mentioned something about the wife being gone, and I guess people thought I was sad and depressed, and so they'd reach. I have to be extremely careful what I talk about. But I said recently, I'm getting ready to go on this vacation. I'll probably still deliver the newsletter, and a couple people at Microsoft, they said I should absolutely not do that, but they volunteered to do it, and so I've got a couple folks that are doing the newsletters for a couple of weeks. So that's pretty awesome. So I really truly appreciate that.
That shows that you like. I'll come on the show tell them I got mauled by a pack of dogs, struck by lightning, caught Ebola virus and everything else, and they tell me, man up.
Yeah, maybe it might just be pity. I don't know. People just poor Rod. He just can't do anything. So.
He's
Frank.
Well, don't work on vacation, Rod. To that
don't
point.
Work on vacation.
I can't help it. Frank. I've done it for 30 years that way. So anyway,
all the stuff I was working on was super secret, so I can't tell you. No, I'm kidding. But we do have a question in the chat there. What container did you use to collect logs? Is that running rsyslog or syslog?
Oh, sorry.
rsyslog. rsyslog. Yeah, for sure. It's once you get into it, it's not so much of that. It's automatic unless you have to go in and modify, the r/syslog conf file or the ng conf file. Really do this when you're messing with stuff like this, especially this production. Make sure you understand the Linux command to copy that conf file and put it somewhere safe. And then you can always go back. And Smart. Then don't assume that if you've done something, unless you do service space r/syslog restart, assume that the changes didn't take. I always do r/syslog service r/syslog status, and you can see if it's listening on the ports and stuff that should be defined, right? It's pretty good. I learned a lot. And like I said, big shout out to Gene for walking me through some stuff.
Did you build the container or did you download one?
I downloaded one. I haven't built a Docker container in a minute. This already can, right? But
yeah, same for my scenario.
Yeah, let somebody else do it. Right.
Yeah.
And do it that way. So.
Pull down the template.
And so, either than that,
if you drop in our Discord later, which one you downloaded, that'd be great.
Okay, we can do that. So, all right. Well, Frank, you obviously don't have anything to share because you're saying everything is top secret and all this other stuff. Oh,
Frank,
go ahead, bro.
Super secret. Yeah, I was going to say super quick. I'm also on vacation next week. I think. So, Rod, you're out next week?
Next week, no. I still have work to do next week. In fact, this is most of our KQL stuff. We have a workshop created now, and I have like 50 people showing up next week to do workshop prep so they can take this thing and deliver it to our customers. So that's the last thing I have to do before vacation.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, sweet. I'm on vacation next week.
Are you?
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Just me and Frank next week.
Yeah. Where are you going, Ed?
I can put it on the show. People would get me. Interpol is looking for me, and Interpol. CIA and everybody.
Really?
I'm a fugitive. I can't just. Okay. I'm going to go to London for a little bit.
Oh, cool.
I have to drop my ego and become a Microsoft employee so I can get vacation time.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
You're a perpetual. And then he puts it on the Ed's going to London. So everybody.
Perfect. My wife's going to go to London in November. So
I'm going to London, Ontario.
Oh, she's not going to London, Ontario. Although I have to say, as a peeved off Canadian, it's cheaper to fly to London, Ontario than it is to fly to London, UK. Outrageous domestic flights up here, completely outrageous.
I can believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's dumb. Super dumb.
Which is why I bought a lot of stock in airlines over the last month, right?
There you go, man.
I'm
going north. I'm going to the Northwest Territories. I'm going on a fishing trip. We're going to be in the middle of nowhere. We're going to be it's called Great Slave Lake. It's the 10th largest lake in the world.
Wow.
It's the largest lake.
I got to tell you, I can't wait for Brady to have kids. This is going to be, no more of this fun.
No, there'll be no more fun. No more jumping out of helicopters on skis like you James Bond.
The kid's coming with me. You guys don't know what you're talking about. The kid's going to come everywhere. Kids going on the golf cart. Kids coming skiing. Kids going on fishing trips.
Have a little kid on the front of them. Going to look exactly like a little mini me.
Absolutely. I'm going to have the dad pack. Yeah. It's that is not where we're going, Rod. But it's a way to advertise a different fit. There's probably a buttload of fishing operations up there. So yeah, got to go buy some new camping gear and got a sweet sun hat. Things are gonna be good. Can't wait.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one other thing I want to share. One of our previous guests, then a working peer of mine, Rin Yuri, got his name right. He is. I think he did announce that his SOC or SOC framework workbook is now part of the deployment in the content. But it also does some other things. It deploys it, and I think this is available. You can deploy it based on whether you have a small SOC, medium SOC, two-person operation. It scales it down and it says, oh, you're running this in an enterprise, right? Because I think we had a listener that asked Rod, hey, I'm a two-man shop. Can I use Sentinel? Absolutely, you can. Matter of fact, the fewer people you have is probably a greater reason to use to be able to get the telemetry and right off the bat, especially with Consumer Cloud. But if you go into the workbooks and look up the SOC framework, there should be a lot of updates in there, right? And then there's one more that was really, really cool. The archiving workbook that gives you scenarios based on using basic logs, LA archive, the primary LAW, and something else. So I was playing around with that, showing it to a customer, and they're like, oh, okay, this is what we need. We need to be able to predict. And this customer runs 10,000 playbooks a day.
Wow.
Literally, they fire. I'm like, are you sure?
Wow. I'm always telling customers that playbooks don't really cost that much. That customer, holy crap.
Yeah, well, they have 206 use cases. Use cases in Microsoft speak is our analytic rules, and those analytic rules fire off 10,000, whether it's based on alerts or just time or status. And even at 10,000 a day, the cost is still minuscule unless you get a dedicated. I'm gonna butcher this. This is wrong. If you have a dedicated cluster to run your playbooks of sorts, right? So
you can request that. Yeah.
And so that's the only time that cost will go up on you, right? But we had a great session there. You know, I hate talking pricing and licensing, but it was interesting. They are trying to map what they are using with Phantom to what we're doing, and then they thought that the analytic rules cost. What's the cost per analytic rule? $1. I was like $10 per each rule per month sent to this PayPal.
Yeah,
sitting right here, sending to me. There you go. Once again, a good learning week for everybody except Frank.
Yeah, except Frank. Absolutely, Frank, who's not yet an MVP, but needs to work a little harder.
And you wonder why he wasn't. He's never going to become a Microsoft MVP. He doesn't want to put the work in, man.
Right. He won't make recommendations on MS Docs. He won't keep busy. I don't even know what he does all day on that green screen.
Oh my God, man! The SC200 is so outdated. My wife passed it the other day.
So Edward, how much could they get rid of playbooks and go to automation rules, or is that not really worth it for them?
It's great that you were talking about that, and what you said is what we were considering. So they're going to send me a sample. You know, customers sort of tight-lipped about what they're doing. I said, you got to show me what you're doing. You got to share a little bit in trust. And I'm like, man, a lot of this is you could do with automation rules, right? And so they were interested in that too. I think I got hip to automation rules about a month ago. Rod schooled me, and I had to help a customer deploy some of them for incident severity change and what goes next. Pretty slick. Now, I didn't know this about it until Rod told me. So you got all these things that have happened, and then you put an automation rule in. Does it go back retroactive, and take care of stuff? Or is it only from the time you did it going forward? It's only going forward. So any of the things that you tell that automation rule to do won't happen against incidents that have already happened.
I think you're doing it. I think that's fine. Me. That was the conversation we had.
Yeah, we talked about automation rule.
I don't know.
What I actually like to start seeing is that using Azure Arc to run playbooks on a local, running playbooks on-prem to manage local infrastructure related stuff versus just doing it for cloud-based resources. So I don't know if anybody's utilized Azure Arc yet because if you think about a lot of the automation that takes place, you kind of need to have access to those on-prem devices for what you might be doing. Yeah. So with Azure Arc, it's kind of interesting because then since you can run playbooks, or playbooks can run locally, then in theory, you should be able to extend your automation to on-prem related resources.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, the hook's there, right? That's the whole point.
You can do that already.
Yeah, we need to get Thomas back on the show. Just shout out Thomas. Come back and talk about Azure Art.
Right, you
No.
can do that already?
You can set up a
I figured you could. Oh,
Yeah,
I know
Frank's
you
smarter
can. I
than
know
me,
you
so I
can,
wasn't
but I'm
sure.
just wondering how many people are doing it,
Oh, okay.
or even have thought about going through that process.
customers have asked about it. I know
Yeah.
that.
I've
I
had
don't know
one
how many
customer
people
ask
are
about
actually
it.
doing it. But yeah.
Can you run KQL on Azure Stack?
There's no clusters on Azure Stack, so no.
Can I do it? Someone's trying to do it.
No. However, there are client-side tools.
Yes.
Yeah.
They want to be able to run the KQL services on Azure Stack. They're a big enough customer to push the issue also.
You need access to a cluster for KQL to work. Otherwise, it's just any old query language.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they're working on that.
Well, maybe our guest will have some input on this. Let's bring him in.
All right. So we have the notorious Steve Taylor, security architect, consultant, engineer extraordinaire. Evidently, he has an absolutely outstanding cloaking device to hide him from my sight because I did not know he lived in Atlanta. He lives around here. You know, that's one more beer drinking buddy that I could do, right?
Yeah, I will take you up on that. Thanks.
Perfect.
Beer is my favorite food. So, Mr. Taylor, I'd like for you to come on, have fun, talk about what you do, who you are, and what your passions are, and the floor is yours, sir. Do your thing.
Sure. Well, thanks. On the radar piece, I'd like to think that it's probably because I moved here just about 2 years ago, which wasn't exactly the best time in the world to be, meeting new friends in the area.
Fair.
So
That's fair.
but I'm a cloud solution architect, focusing on security stuff, working in the Microsoft federal business. So working with all of our federal government customers, getting them from commit to realize value and kind of anything in between. So, what's that?
We've
Awesome.
had some guests. We've had some guests on that work on that side. Big shout out to Vishal. Do you work with Vishal at all over there on that side?
I have a little bit. In previous years, he was working over in the Fed Civ business. So think of all of the civilian agencies. And I didn't do a whole lot of work there. And now he's working in DoD. And I'm doing a little bit work there. But I know who he is. We're on calls regularly. Yeah.
Did you ever
Have
cross?
you ever visited Tom Quinn's spaceship?
No, I have not.
There you go. Big shout out to Tom Quinn. Come back on the show.
If you ever
too,
watch
Michelle.
you have to watch him when he's on our show. I mean, he really looks like he's like in a little space capsule when he's talking to you. It's crazy. So.
Yeah, and so one more question about the federal side. What about your interaction with partners on that side? Do you have to hold their hand sometime when they're in there and they're about to totally derail something?
Partners within federal is always interesting because depending on what their business model is, we may be at the frenemy level rather than in some other cases. But yeah, we do work with some folks. I know one partner I'm working with right now, their customer is mostly an AWS shop, and they know that Azure is coming for their customers, so they're engaging with us to figure out and say, hey, all this stuff that we're doing for securing and monitoring and logging all of our stuff on AWS, we want you to help us figure out how to do that kind of stuff with Azure. And before we actually get the workloads up there, kind of put some scaffolding in so that they're ahead of the curve there.
Yeah, safe landing rather than secure after landing. Secure the runway before you try to land and then take the runway.
That's the best analogy you've had yet, Edward. That's great. Yeah.
Hey, it's a beer.
Hey.
What about these landing zones you're talking about?
So. No, go ahead, Frank. I'm sorry.
So I still don't know what you do. So what is the day in the life? I mean, what are you helping to implement? I mean, are you doing? It looks like you froze there. Steve is
froze,
frozen.
but he's smiling. Look at that.
Can you hear me?
We
We
can
hear you.
Definitely hear you.
All right.
And that's a
I'll
great
work on turning the camera on and off.
That's okay. You got a great still right now. I think we got to clip that.
Yeah, go ahead and clip that there.
Yeah, I'll just
Yeah,
clip that right
alright.
there. Yeah, perfect.
Well,
That's a lot.
we'll all turn off our cameras in empathy.
We'll put on funny images of Edward. Steve, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yeah.
All right. Don't worry about the
I-
video. If it comes in, it
Yeah,
comes
don't
in.
worry.
If it doesn't,
Don't
yeah. So
worry.
what's day in the life of Steve Taylor on the federal side? And then I also want to talk to you about your community work too after you answer Frank's question.
Yeah. So it's a lot of, so especially within the federal government, we Microsoft are a little newer to the game, at least as far as the customer is concerned. So there's a lot of education, explain to customers art of the possible. And then there's also a lot of calls around, hey, we're interested in this product. Can you help us, set it up, proof of concept, pilot, minimum viable product, all that. And those are kind of all inbounds. When I talk to folks about what I do is it's really, post commit, right? Like CSAs get brought in when the customer has decided, yes, I want to use your products, and it's like pre-final deployment, right? So I'm not going to be there migrating the last thing, deploying the last thing, upgrading the last thing, but kind of anything in between there in the life cycle is fair game. So it really is project to project, customer to customer, kind of what's going on with them and helping them out, be more secure in the cloud, across the whole variety of our security products.
So, what's the difference between you and, we always think from the exam standpoint, right? So, the Azure architect versus the security architect or the security engineer, which one do you really place yourself in primarily, and what's the difference in your eyes?
Well, I definitely say in the SC series, right? I'm not the person that you want to call if you're having those, AZ305 type of discussions, right? I mean, I can have some of that, but I can't go nearly as deep as some of my peers who do that kind of work. And then whether it's, architecting or operating, I mean, it really, that comes back to the, what does the customer need? Where are they on their journey? Some folks, we're having high level discussions of how things connect back and forth, and some folks, need the help of, click here or, run this script there to figure out how to get things working.
Are you mainly
So-
implementing Sentinel, or are you doing more of the Azure security related stuff? So what are you most commonly doing from a technology standpoint?
Yeah, great question.
I would say I've been mostly working either on Sentinel or Defender for Cloud things. But, like a lot of the roles at Microsoft, what we're asked to focus on kind of changes year to year. So that's getting more into the M365 suite of tools are going to be kind of more of a focus for us this year. And we're also kind of handing off to our infrastructure folks, those guys who do have all the, the AZ305 certs, and, asking them to handle some of that Defender for Cloud, at least, initial workload, right? Like you're having the conversations about standing up all these resources. Can you have at least that initial conversation about securing them in Defender for Cloud? And then if things get complex or they need deeper dives or things like that, then we'll get brought into those conversations.
So Steve, you mentioned something earlier that sort of drives me nuts. Is there such a thing? Do you believe there absolutely is such a thing as a minimum viable product when it comes to things like Sentinel and M365? Because a lot of our customers are like, give me the minimum viable product. Just tell me what to deploy. Just the base stuff. Because I don't know. I'm going to leave it to you. I'm not going to get on my soapbox. Do you think there is absolutely a minimum viable product for the things that we produce for customers?
Scoped down to just security, no, not really. I would kind of use that phrase to describe, security being part of a bigger project, right? And if they're trying to figure out, hey, I'm working on this application or this architecture, and how do I secure it? I would think of the app or the architecture as being the MVP, and then we're doing the security, for it or for what they're deploying.
Yeah, and there's a good question in the chat there. MVP has to be related to business requirements, right? It meets your needs or it doesn't, which is awesome. Kind of an awesome way to put that. But every individual business and organization's needs are different,
right,
depending on what their environment looks like. So this MVP, a lot of times customers will say, point me to the docs that show me what this minimum viable product is. And then you're like, well, I can't. I need to talk to you first, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've seen, bad MVPs for Sentinel before, right? Where customers turn on Sentinel and they bring us in because it's like, I'm just not seeing anything happening in here, for the 6 weeks we've been running it. And you go find out it's like, oh, they only have one data connector connected and they haven't enabled any of the analytics rules that come out of the box with those. And so that's, the minimum will definitely vary depending on your experience with a lot of the products.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well put. Roddy, is that in the same vein as best practices? That type of...
I don't like that either.
That's another cringe term, I know. And I actually use a similar line when I talk to customers that, we have, every organization's different, your requirements are different. We have, recommended paths forward, but there's no one size fits all install Azure Security 3.0 this way manual, right? It's not on-prem software releases anymore. It's there's too much going on, and any different vertical can have a different requirement depending on where they're at in their overall security posture and journey.
Yeah, reminds me of the difference between like a toaster and an old VCR, right? Here's your toaster. All it does is it makes toast. The old VCR, that 12 would flash.
Brody's wondering what a VCR.
I was very good at reprogramming the VCRs post power outage. I'll have you know, Frank. Okay, I saved the house more than once with my elite IT skills. But yeah, I get where you're going with that, Rod, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of customers just want the toaster.
Yeah.
They get the VCR and they're like, I don't care about that 12. I'm just gonna
let it flash. I've got a watch. That's all I'll check.
Just let it flash. I know what time it is. I have a watch. I have compensating controls. There you go. And to Pirate Tumsky, I 152.5% agree with you. Best practice is a horrible term, right? It is. I like best use cases.
New acronym, right? CRP, current recommended practice.
Yeah, I've heard that one before. I like that. Current recommended, and current being key, right? Because things are changing all the time, right? Recommended practice, that can get stale. Current recommended practice based on latest enhancements or things we've learned in the industry. Absolutely. Thanks, Pirate.
Yeah, and then you can just, sub that out to, IRP or industry, current practices, ICP, right? Whatever. Because certain industries have nuances about them that, it changes what even your current best practices may be. Manufacturing. Don't get me started on that. So, Steve, you how long have you been at Microsoft? Let me ask that question first.
I'll hit 16 years next week.
16 years.
Congratulations. Happy birthday.
Was that 60?
If that were true, I'd have to compliment myself on how I'm looking here. But
he's still trying to figure out how to secure the Altair.
Right.
Yeah. So, doing your tenure here, we know about what you are doing now, but what got you to this point? How did you end up becoming a security practitioner? What did you start off as?
So I came into Microsoft right at the height of when we were doing all of the Exchange 5.5 and NT 4.0 migrations up to Exchange N80 2003. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth with the company. Then I was doing Exchange work for a little while, and that kind of morphed into platforms work, mostly Active Directory, and that kind of eventually, as we started doing some more interesting things in security, that kind of caught my attention, and I started gravitating to that direction. I remember thinking about back when it was Windows Defender ATP, and that kind of catching my eyes, like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that's all about, and starting to look into it. And then when we acquired Aerorado back in, what was that, 2015, I think. And, you know, that's what has eventually become MDI through a couple of, you know, product changes and renames. But
And
those two things.
I cut my teeth on the pre-acquisition piece. That's just I came on Microsoft. So I sort of got hired only because I was one of the few people that knew ATA. Yeah, and still one of my favorite products, MDI. Big shout out to Richard Job and all those guys over there, Ricky Simpson. And so you started off in collaboration of a sort. I that was the middle part of my career. I started off at route switch and stuff like that. So if you've been doing exchange that long, you understand the reference lobster claw. Remember that was the way that you can inject fields inside the EDB database.
I think somebody told me that as a joke.
Yeah,
Steve, you're allowed to say no, by the way.
Yeah.
That before.
I love I smiles at everything.
Brody wouldn't. Broden's not being in the game long enough, you know. So, but if anybody has come up through the ranks in collaboration on the Microsoft platform is where you got your scars, you're battle tested because it's been many nights, you know, and then trying to restore the databases so you don't have to, you know, dial tone the mailboxes. So yeah.
Oh yeah. You know, have stickers and wish you have badges like Credly from back in the day for just jet stress past. Yep. And things like that. Yeah, absolutely.
So within the federal space, you know, you're doing the technology. What is most challenging to be able to get the customer to adopt? Is it? I understand the I think I understand the requisition and the procurement thing that being, you know, it has to be assigned budget. But well, instead of me saying what is the most difficult, what do you get the most pushback from adoption of the Microsoft security products?
I mean, some of it, so we see it a bit in commercial, I think, but I think we see it a lot more in the federal government space, is that, you know, we're the second one to market, really. You know, the folks over at AWS had a head start as far as kind of defining for the government, you know, what cloud is and how you do cloud. And only recently with some contract letting, you know, have we been able to kind of really get in there and show the full breadth of all the different cloud things that we do. So we're playing a lot of catch up in that space. And I think, you know, playing that catch up and gaining that mind share is a lot of the hill that we have to climb there.
Yeah, I agree with you. We talked about this on a few shows back, that a lot of times it's not the technology not being able to stand on its own, it's the mindset of those who are in charge. You're asking them to change the way they go about their business, what has provided them a livelihood for years. Now you tell them I got to learn something else, right? Even though the product may be better suited, I won't say superior, just, you know, but just say, hey, this is going to be better suited for what you're trying to do. I totally get it. I did my share. Did you ever cross paths with Jeff Schlogenberger?
Yeah, Schnegs. Yeah, we work together quite a bit, actually, because he's, you know, on your team, he's doing a lot of the coverage for Fed. And even before he became a GBB, when he was, you know, selling a lot of the security stuff as an SSP, you know, we crossed paths quite a bit.
Yeah, he's got some good stuff that's going to be published here. That's really good. With he does some parody matrixing and stuff. So people always say, well, when is it going to be available in Gov? When is it going to be available in GCC? He's working on some stuff. I can't wait till you get ready to showcase it.
I've seen some alpha versions of that Excel spreadsheet that he's got with all the products, and even down to the feature level and which, you know, which sovereign cloud things are in or are not in yet, and all that. It's in depth.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I threw my little bit of stuff into it. I'm doing something similar for partners though. So people always say, what's a good partner? So I'm creating a partner heat map for the world. Let's say if you're in this region, you need this skill, you need this. It'll be published here it has to be published next week because it's due to the V team I'm on. But big shout out to Richard Diver for helping me get that spreadsheet going. Is actually turning into something more than that. I'm trying to imitate the way another gentleman does Azure charts. I wanted to look like that, but I don't have the programming skills to do it that way. So spreadsheet until then. We'll figure it out. So with Sentinel, did you learn it after you got enrolled, or did you know it and that's how you got the role?
Good question.
A little bit more of the latter. I was definitely leaning into doing that kind of stuff before I became a CSA. So while I was still, right before I was a CSA, I was a consultant, and then right before that, I guess now we call them CSAEs. They were CEs 2 months ago, and back when I was it, we called them PFEs. But so I was doing some security stuff and a little bit of Sentinel. It was one of those things. I'm like, this is going to be interesting, and started trying to learn through osmosis just by being on all the right internal DLs, and then just to kind of pick up the lingo and learn it that way. And then I did get to do some interesting lab stuff with the Dart team. Was doing some Sentinel labs at a Ready event back in summer of 2019, and so I was able to kind of get my hands on with actual data in those demo environments. So I was able to do some work with that. And then actually a lot of my hands-on with our whole breadth of security products came during the summer of 2020. I was transitioning between customers, and I was supposed to start commuting up to DC to work with a government customer. My first day was going to be March 23rd. And obviously nobody was going to work in March 23rd. All of a sudden I had to find work as a consultant and figure out how I was going to do things. So it was, okay, what projects can I find to give me, 80, 160, 300 hours at a time to work on security stuff. And that actually turned out to be good from a learning standpoint, because I was able to, do projects that had, one security product that I knew, okay, and then they also needed to deploy a second one that I was going to be learning while deploying it. And that kind of helped me, touch everything that we were doing and get that kind of hands-on within customer environments experience.
Very cool. So doing your travels, the way I got introduced to Sentinel, similar to you, I was working on the ATA before it became Azure ATP, and I crossed paths with a gentleman by the name of Steve Fell. And he sort of said, "Hey, this is going to be the thing. Have you should know Steve. He's been in that government space forever."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then Andrew Walters, who said, "Hey, we're going to build a SIM." Like, is that right? What type of SIM? So it's interesting to see the challenges on the federal side, because I covered federal for a while and it was challenging. Absolutely, it was, right, to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed to me, because I didn't know how to play the game, it was more relationship based than actual, validity of the product to get it going, right? You have to get people on your side. And my thoughts were, man, if I got to do all this, I'm always running for office. That's what it seemed like. How many babies I got to shake and how many hands I got to kiss, right?
Yeah, there you go.
and that is one thing we find is that that ends up playing a little bit is that government doesn't necessarily have a profit motive like the commercial space does. So in a case, if price is your only advantage, it's not necessarily an advantage, because a lot of government customers, they have their budget for that tool, and the opportunity cost of switching over is greater than what other savings you might be able to provide to them. So it's unfortunate to not have that tool in your tool bag when you're trying to figure out how to convince customers that they should go with us.
Yeah, I agree. Because it's more not profit, it's more about expenditure, right? I got this budget. What do I spend it on, rather than I'm going to spend it and I'm going to make a profit from it. So I've been there with you. I understand. Bro, do you have a question?
That was, by the way, just great questions, Edward. Great. And getting all of Steve's history. That's really cool. I didn't know you were here 16 years, Steve, and working your way up through all of that and getting on the big security train like all of us. Like, that's really cool. Thank you, Edward. Great.
Yeah. He threw some things back when days were normal. I miss going to Ready. That's when you met everybody. You found a new gig. You got all the free drinks you wanted from folks picking it up, right? Hopefully we get back to that in some form or fashion here soon. So
yeah, go ahead. I'll ask you when you're done.
So do you have any, don't name names, significant wins on the government side for Sentinel? Because I work two of them, but I can't say I'm on a call. What about you? Have you had some measurable success with organizations you probably thought wouldn't take on this because, like you said, cost to transition is more than the product?
Um, so we've had one customer that I won't name, but they've been a real beacon of light for us in the sense of they're divesting from they're trying to set up their own IT. They had been reliant on another government agency for doing all their IT work, and they're completely separating out on their own. And they have completely bought into all the Microsoft stuff. They're doing Azure Virtual Desktop. They're doing the full M365 E5 suite and all of the Azure security on top of it. And it's been great, both from hey, we get to do all the stuff we're trying to do in these spaces, but also to say, hey, look at agency one over here. They're using all of our stuff and they're using it all together, and you can go ask them how it's going. So that's been really great.
I know exactly that customer. If you go look at the old emails, you'll see my name.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's sort of, I can't say the customer name, but it sort of reminds you of a mythological god. So yeah.
That's hilarious.
It does. The acronym that describes that agency. I work with two of them, and you're right. When you said divest to run their own IT, I said I know what he's talking about. I know exactly what he's talking about. Sarah Young was on that. Big shout out, Sarah. Sarah was on that account as the ESC for years.
Get Sarah on the show. Sarah, would you put in a good word? She come on.
Yeah, we could get Sarah. That shouldn't be too much trouble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
First of all, she gonna say get my name right, Ed. I got married last year. Like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. There you go.
Yeah, Sarah's good people. She's overdoing work in the Tech for Social Good org now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yep. Cool. Okay.
I remember she had the transition.
And what's just super quick? Can you describe what that is for our listeners?
So it's our outreach to nonprofit organizations and how we help them do all of their, IT and security stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Cool. Well, that's a good initiative. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't hear about that before today. I'm gonna have to look into that.
She's all about to give back and trying to enable folks, and we both saw the need that nonprofits are getting beat over the head, right?
Mm-hmm.
No funding, no staff, and all that. And she was doing a lot of stuff pro bono, right? Just to build, name and brand recognition and helping out. But I'm glad she found a role at Microsoft that allows her to do that. And that's a good thing. Yeah, very good.
Absolutely, that's really
cool. So,
Ed, I got a question. What would you? You got any more? You got any more questions, Ed? I'll let you finish. I'm gonna switch gears once you're done, there, buddy.
I'm done. I'm gonna let you.
Okay. Have a sip of your beer, or whatever's in the red cup. I don't want to assume. Yeah, pound half of it back. So, Steve, you also recently joined the leadership team on the worldwide security community at Microsoft, and you handled the communications for a lot of the internal calls that I love attending. I know other people who listening to this from Microsoft love attending as well, whether it's compare or compete series or deep dives with subject matter experts and stuff. And it's it's I don't know how large the security community is at Microsoft, because Microsoft's such a behemoth. I can't like picture how big it is in my own head, just being here under a few years. You want to talk about the role, your recent transition, and then how that all plays into just giving back to the internal community broadly?
Sure. Yeah. So that journey kind of started. I too, like you, I was a big fan of consuming all of that content. The monthly meetings where everyone talks about what they're doing and all of the off tech sessions and things like that. One of my big things is that I try to be really good about connecting people and things internally. Like I've got a pretty good memory for names and faces and projects, and so I do good at remembering, hey, John was working on this thing 2 years ago, and now Bill is working on it. I should point Bill in John's direction.
Nice.
And that goes to not just people, but also a lot of the internal resources we have, whether it's documentation, training, things like that. And so about a year and a half ago, I was on one of the community meetings, and just in the chat as people were presenting, I was throwing links to things and answering questions that people had. And Liz Tesh, who used to be the lead of the community, just kind of reached out to me on the side and said, "Steve, how are you not part of what we're doing here?"
Awesome.
And
she's amazing. What a great comment.
she
Yeah,
is.
go ahead.
Yeah, and so she reached out, and I sat down with her and Nick Fajevitz and Sean Leonard, who were Nick and Liz were running the community, and Sean was one of the communication leads at the time. And we just kind of sat down and realized, yeah, this would be a good fit. I have the time and the ability and a bit of the expertise to help out. So I kind of joined the team and have been doing a lot of that, scheduling and communications and providing all those connection points for what's over 4,400 people now in the community. Awesome. and helping them out.
That's great. Well, thank you for all you do and the leadership team does. When I joined Microsoft, I came from a partner, regional, much smaller, as I'm sure most organizations are compared to Microsoft. And I was wide-eyed, Security Pro wanting to come in, 4,000 emails hitting my inbox the whole time. Managers like, skill up, over the next initial few months, learn as much as you can. We'll get you on a gig eventually. And all of a sudden I'm getting added to distribution lists and security communities like the one you now help run. And if it wasn't for like getting on those initial calls and starting to learn and see common people and faces and topics on all these different little community sessions, I would have, as a COVID hire, been a lot more disconnected from the overall security community than kind of where I'm at today. And we all have different organizational verticals. Like I'm in industry solutions and consulting, but there's our engineering teams, our sales teams, and product teams, and everybody coming into those calls all together. And sometimes chat gets ridiculous, and the presenter's doing the presenting thing, and the chat's just blowing up, and people are having a great time. It was a really important aspect of my onboarding, and I know other consultants I've helped mentor or have joined around the same time I've joined, to be able to have that common that cohesivity, that those common topics and ideas that we all want to talk about, and then actually building a virtual community when we don't get to see each other in person. I still haven't met most of the people I work with.
Yeah, and so I'm also involved with our veterans ERG military at Microsoft, and so because of that, I've been on some hiring community events and some mentorship things with college students and things like that. And something I always bring up is that, especially around the veteran community, but certainly within, technical communities, when you're at Microsoft, you need to find your people. And, that same kind of idea, Brody, that you mentioned being hired during COVID, like I said earlier, I moved to the Atlanta area, in April of 2020. And if it wasn't for that military ERG, that veteran connection, I probably still wouldn't know anybody in the Atlanta area who worked for Microsoft. But because of, that effort to, find your people and connect with people that you have a background with already, I know a ton of folks who work in the area, and none of them who work in Microsoft Federal, right? The vast majority of them work either in the South OU, or they work in Azure Engineering, or any of the other organizations that we have in the office here.
So I take it from your comments, you're a veteran?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for your service, ex-Navy.
Air Force here.
Okay, all right. Go Air Force, fly boy. So let me ask you another question. In the Fed, I don't know how I missed this cheat sheet. How much you involved with CMMC?
I'm aware of it. I don't do a whole lot of that work personally. I have some peers who kind of work with, our DIB customers and DIB partners, and they're often a little more concerned about it, from trying to develop services that they can then sell to the government and show that they have that certification. I actually don't do a whole lot with CMMC.
Yeah, we've had a guest on the show. We've had Lil and we've had TJ come on it, over on that side, and that's what they do, right? And it's going to become super important. It's important now. It's going to become super important here in the next year when they start getting to the final revision. Where are they on 2.2 or something? I forget what they're on right now. And yeah, that's going to be a big deal for those who are even non-DoD. You're going to have to figure it out. right? I
Yeah.
hope this doesn't hurt small contractors and bidders on it. So we'll see.
Oh,
Yeah.
great question in the chat. Great question. As former Navy and Air Force, did you like Top Gun Maverick?
I'll go first. I haven't seen it. I'm watching it this weekend because I heard it was awesome.
Are you seeing it in theater?
Well, my home is a theater. You haven't been in my
Okay.
house.
Okay, bud. Okay, well, I hope you got a good sound system and a big screen because it's worth it. All right, yeah.
82 inches.
All right, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
CRT
yeah.
or what?
CR.
Big heavy one, right? 6 feet deep. Yeah.
Man, you can go to Costco and get an 82-inch TV,
I
man,
know,
for $1,500.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
weighs as much as you. Yeah. What about
yeah,
you, Steve?
I literally picked the TV up.
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised. They're so cheap that OLEDs these days are just like feathers. Yeah, absolutely, man.
Now,
I
that
want to
was-
watch it.
That was Ed's chance to brag about his
My theater room. You're right.
Yeah. We're all
And
coming
his-
over to drink beer at your place, apparently, Ed.
and his
so-
lifting skills.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and my lifting skill. Hey, whenever you can pub yourself, man, you got to do it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well put.
You know, you always bragging about your tarantula herding experience.
Yep.
You know.
Well, we learned that at Microsoft for Connects. You have to figure out how to promote yourself at
That's right.
every turn. So yeah.
I've not done it lately. I need to get better at it because, yeah. Anyway, on that. So
I was just telling someone today that when I'm writing my Connect, I start from the most outrageous OPR bullet that I could think of, and then kind of pare it down to just barely saving the world instead of saving it 3 times over.
I like that. Thank you.
I love that. I thought I was the only one that I started mine off. In addition to inventing the internet, this is what I've done, right? So, what's the name contributed, but he was not the actual contributor of it. Gore. He had some input.
A little bit. You know him, Al Gore, friend of the show, Steve.
Yeah, come on the show. Sorry, you're right. I'm Al Gore. I told you guys the climate is going to hell. Dude, the climate is going to hell.
I can imagine, man. Yeah, you're Edward. You just know everybody and are everybody. Okay, Steve, super quick thoughts on Maverick because it was awesome, and I want to hear. Well, I thought it was anyway. Go ahead.
I agree with you. I had a great time. It reminded me of everything that I loved about it, the first one from my youth. So
totally, they nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. Yeah,
I got to go watch it. I have not heard a bad review about it. I heard it was, and I'm a Tom Cruise fan. I have not missed any Mission Impossible. I watch each one of them at least twice or 3. I love watching the show. It is highly entertaining. I'm looking for the 4th one because I definitely like it better than James Bond. I'm like,
they're different. They're different for sure. Yeah, they're entertaining.
Yeah, they are entertaining.
So what about Star Wars and Star Trek? No.
Oh, Steve, are you a Star Wars or Star Trek guy, or both? You're allowed to say both, by the way. These guys like trying to build animosity and conflict for viewership on the call. So let's get your actual.
All right, Ed, Brody, it was a joke. We can move on from this.
No. Steve, are you a Trekkie? Or are you a Star Trekker?
I definitely fall in the both category. I don't stand for one or the other over the other.
Excellent.
Well, let me ask you an easy question: MDE or Microsoft Cloud App Security? Or Microsoft Cloud Apps with the Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps?
So before I was even asked to be a guest here, I had been thinking about how I would answer this question before tools, and I'm going to give that terrible consultant answer of it depends, and I'll back that up. So if a lot of it is about impact and persona. If you want to have a quick install, quick win, do great protection, I think the first thing you should do is MDI. If you want to find something in your environment as quickly as possible, the first thing you should do is MDE. If you want to knock out one of the biggest threat vectors that we have to compromise, which is some user clicking a link, then you should do MDO. And if you're a project manager looking at a Gantt chart for trying to do all of these things, then you should start with Defender for Cloud Apps because it takes the longest to get right.
That's the
Came
best
prepared.
answer we've had, man.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
That's really good. And now that you said that, that makes sense because cloud apps is noisy and it may expose false stuff that once management gets a look at it, like, oh my God, they're doing this. So MDI is in front of Defender for Cloud Apps for me now. It is getting better and better
Oh
all
yeah,
the time.
absolutely.
I don't really touch MDO too much. I'm so past mail sanitation and all that other stuff right now. Like, you got to put people in timeout. You click on a link, you go in timeout for a day. You don't get any emails.
All right, so I've changed mine. You ready? My first thing that I would implement is Sysmon with Sentinel.
Rod enters the chat.
We've had this discussion. That's okay.
Weird. We carry on inside jokes over between
Oh,
episodes.
went quiet really fast. There's all this good talk, and then I mentioned that and nobody's talking. What's the deal?
Edward's got a frumpy face on right now. He's staring off into the abyss. Yeah.
No. I just, I can't multitask, man. I got an old 286 computer up here, man, with a co-processor. Well, I got to stop one task and pick up another and change floppy disk. But so let me ask you this question: what's your current role and what you're doing? I forget how long you've been enrolled. How long you been enrolled, Steve?
About 1.5 years now.
Still having fun?
Yeah.
That's what I'm measuring. Job. Am I having fun? And that doesn't mean the job is easy, but am I having fun?
Yeah. Is it interesting work? Do I enjoy the work? And the answer to both of those is yes.
Yeah, and that's it. That's if you can get that out of the way, you're good to go, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like such an imposter on this podcast because Brody is all skilled and he's young and bushy, bright eye and bushy tail. Frank is a seasoned old veteran, and Rod is a walking quantum computer. So yeah, I guess I'm going to go in. I guess I'm going to go into sales. That'll be my superpower. Hey,
hide your encryption from Rod.
That's not a superpower, by the way.
What, sales is not a superpower?
Sales is not a superpower.
Controversial opinion.
Yeah.
Hey, Edward, before we like start wrapping up the show and your wife comes down and she starts threatening you, as this happens pretty much around this time every Wednesday. Hey, I just wanted to give a shout out to I think it was you, Ed. We give a shout out to you. Did you recommend Ingrid Rodriguez for a Spanish-speaking individual? Yep. Excellent. Mm-hmm. So we had Ingrid on today on our LATAM Spanish session call. She talked about data governance, data protection. It was great. It was absolutely well received. We had peak attendance that we've had on the Spanish sessions today, and then also shout out, since I'm going to promote this more internally. That's my goal this year, is to promote more and get maybe some more people watching this live and the recordings. Rodrigo, Fonseca, who was talking about Entra permissions management, who led the Portuguese call today. So thank you to both Ingrid and Rodrigo for joining and performing those presentations in your native languages. That was awesome.
Very cool. I need to reach out to Ingrid. I will probably be in her side of the world here soon. She is outstanding. Her depth and her breadth is impressive, right? Beyond product, right? This is process. I can take this process and apply to any product, right? So Ingrid, I learned a lot from her. I haven't talked to her in a while since she does mostly S&C and not threat. But you had a good one on the show then. She's solid. There are a couple of more I can recommend too.
Please do. And if anyone listening or watching has anyone who speaks Spanish or Portuguese and they want to be a moderator or they want to come do a presentation on anything security, compliance, identity management related internally, if it's your first presentation and you're nervous, or you're seasoned vet and you want to trial something before like a big Ignite presentation, please reach out to me. bcastle@microsoft.com. I think it's pretty obvious what that would be, and absolutely we'll get you on. And Edward, I'll take all the recommendations you got, buddy.
Yeah, just ping me tomorrow. I'll give you 3 more.
Cool.
Be happy to come on. I just met someone today that I'm working with in Mexico.
I'll ping you right now because I'll forget tomorrow. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, and I won't look at it right now. I'll see it tomorrow. So we're getting ready to close the show out. Steve, we'll allow you to close the show out on anything you want to talk about. What is a tip, a trick, a aha, my favorite moment, or don't go this way, go the other way type stuff?
I would say, especially when folks are getting into the weeds with a lot of our security stuff, don't be afraid to ask for help. Nobody knows any one thing all the way, let alone all of the things. And a lot of people pound their head against the wall way too long before seeking out help, and it'll often be, oh, hey, here's the answer. And a drop of humility can save you hours of time. So don't be afraid to ask folks how to do things or how to solve problems. We're all in this together.
And we do it outside of, the Microsoft Security Insight podcast is that thing. Those who want to come on and ask us, those who want to come in and they need help, those who are looking for employment change, skilling up, that's what this show is about, right? Being able to have, between Brody, Rod, and Frank, I hit Frank up with some help for this week. We got a big brain here, and even if we don't know the answer, I bet we know somebody that does know the answer. We just need to go get it, right? And it's been stretched thin. I'm a shake the hands, share a bourbon, build a relationship guy. I'm zoomed out, and I'm teamed out, and I'm slacked out. I'm done. So, but thank you for coming on the show. You're always welcome to come back. You and I will touch base. I'll track you down, and we'll. I think halfway between where you live and I live is downtown, so we'll meet.
That sounds
great. If you're ever in the DC area, we'll grab lunch or dinner.
So fun fact, we were all, we were trying to figure out the schedule for me coming on here. I was in DC last week, and I was supposed to be on the podcast, I think, the week before that. And I was going to ask you if we could have lunch since I was going to be up there next week. But the scheduling just didn't work out this time.
Oh, he wouldn't have had lunch with you anyway. You'd have been sitting at the altar waiting. And then you would have got a bill like, I didn't order anything. Frank did. Take out.
To go. Yeah.
Yeah, he took it to go. You didn't see him come in and get the food and leave? No, I'm not gonna get Frank. We did have a good lunch. He took me to an awesome place last time I was in Virginia, and that food was hot. Oh my God, it was hot. Nice. But sir, you're welcome to come on as a guest, talk about any topic that you want to do, promote your brand, and we're also looking for guest hosts so that with all the vacation that Brody and Rod take.
And you, I'm pretty sure. Interpol London, Ontario.
Hey. London, Ontario. That's where I'm going. Well, thanks to all our listeners, all our supporters, all our viewers, anyone that is listening to the show, you're more than welcome to come on, right? We're a panel of learning, and this is where you can come on and talk about something, find an answer, or just express your knowledge or share your knowledge. So we're good on that. With that being said, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Au revoir.
Oh, by the way, Frank, we need to get like an ending audio thing for our podcast.